I'd like to welcome to the podcast today, Ron Kitchens. Ron is the Senior Partner and Chief Executive Officer of Southwest Michigan First. I'm going to bumble that like 5 or 6 times.
That's easy for you to say.
An economic consulting firm, which has grown compounded revenue at 20% annually during his 14 years as Chief Executive Officer. In addition, Ron leads Consultant Connect and is the publisher of 269 magazine. Ron is the founder of the leadership conference Catalyst University and the co-founder of Next, an invitation-only leader symposium for global economic development leaders. People always give me all these big words.
Sorry.
No, it's totally fine.
That executive word threw you off.
I know, it's all these executive words. Ron and his teams have been extensively featured in over 100 national and international media outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, Fast Company, CBS, NBC, Fox, USA Today, Forbes, Fortune, The Economist, and National Public Radio. Ron is author and co-author of 3 books, including the bestseller Community Capitalism, and speaks globally on leadership, creating thriving, engaged, multi-generational teams and entrepreneurial cultures. Welcome to the podcast. So
Thanks.
happy to have you.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. So my first question is always the same because it always comes back. So what was your first job?
My first job was a stable hand in a horse stable. I worked 20 hours a week. I think I was 13 and paid $1.50 an hour.
Wow.
Which was actually pretty good money at the time. And I shoveled out stables, washed horses, and did kind of general maintenance and would occasionally ride, but these were Tennessee walking horses and they were miserable to ride. So I shoveled manure, and maybe that's what set me up on a career to be an executive.
There you go. See, I always say it comes back around somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You did it for me. So how did you get started in economic development?
So I grew up in abject poverty, grew up just about as poor as you can grow up in America. And I couldn't afford to go to college full time. So I had a great mentor who helped me kind of see my future. Actually, it was kind of miserable. I didn't really know the guy very well. I knew his sons better. And he set me down one day. It was just before I was 19 or just after I turned 19, and said, let me tell you your future. I had intended to go play college football. I got injured the first week of practice, and there was no scholarship. There was going to be no college football. And so I was kind of bumbling through school, and he said, let me tell you your future. Your car's going to break down. You're going to get a loan to buy new tires or fix your car, go buy a new car. You're going to then start taking fewer classes in school because you got to work more to pay off your loan. And then you're going to take a break from school for a semester. You're going to get some local girl pregnant. You're going to get married, and 10 years from now, you're going to be the most popular guy on the assembly line at the fan factory on the edge of town. That's your future. And I remember being I felt like I was punched in the gut, but there wasn't a single thing he said that I thought he was wrong about. So he said, but I'll help you. So he actually put together a group of mentors, older men who were very successful in different industries, and they poured into me. And so I ended up owning a small chain of convenience stores that one of them had, and financed for me to take over, and ended up with lots of employees. And I'm 20 years old, and I have an epiphany that I'm lonely because I'm working 100 hours a week. And I realized none of my friends who went to college can come home. There are no jobs. And I knew the big thing growing up that everybody had that my family didn't have was a job. My father died when I was 4. Neither of my parents finished the 8th grade. And so I knew a job was the most important thing, but I had no idea how, other than me creating jobs, I had no idea how communities and areas created jobs. So I look in our local weekly newspaper and says there's a city council race, and think, well, government, city can help create jobs. So I marched myself down. I'm 20 years old. I go to a local cafe at lunchtime with my form. You had to have 20 signatures to get on the ballot. I walked around and harassed people to sign my form to get me on the ballot. I file, and lo and behold, I ended up winning. I ended up winning 3 terms. Now, they were landslide wins because, come to find out, nobody really cared, so nobody ever ran against me.
It was just you.
But I discovered that government could do things to help with jobs, but it took business and philanthropy to do it together. And so I began creating this kind of model that we now call community capitalism, about bringing people together, bringing together philanthropy with their ability to do things charitably and care about people, business with their ability to actually create jobs and impact that, and government to create an environment where good jobs can be created. And so I literally, let's kind of fast forward a few years after that, I was paying off a loan with one of my banker mentors on an expansion that we had done. And I was telling him about all the new people I was going to get to hire and how excited I was. And he said, you know, you care more about hiring people than you do about making a profit. And I said, finally, you get me. He said, yeah, I didn't mean that as a compliment. We have to figure out something different for your life. You're too talented, but you're going to push boundaries and not think enough about the profit side. And the economy is going to go south, and you're going to put all those people at risk. And so that's when I kind of decided he's right, and I want to spend my life working to create great companies that can create amazing jobs to, in the end, reinforce my belief that the greatest force for change is a job.
I love it. That is so amazing. So just at 20, you're like, well, I'm just going to get on the ballot. That is amazing.
Yep. Well, and the funny thing was, it didn't dawn on anybody that you can't actually run for office until you're 21 in the state of Missouri. But I turned 21 between the filing date and the election date. And so a judge said, well, nobody else wanted it anyway, so it's okay. He can have this.
Just let him have it.
Yeah, nobody wanted it. What else are you going to do?
That is so awesome. Yeah. So Southwest Michigan First focuses on the economic development of Kalamazoo. Is that right?
Yeah, so really the region, the 7 counties region, started to be a traditional economic development corporation. Get up every day, you worry about geographic boundaries. But what we soon realized after my arrival was that where the outcome and the goals were important, how we were going to do it was going to be different. So, we focus our charitable mission on those 7 counties, but we now operate all over North America. We have just over 300 clients now that are other local economic development groups, states, regions, a couple of countries are clients, where we're helping them do the same things. We kind of operate in this model that we call the teaching hospital version of an economic development corporation. If you are really, really, really sick and you have something weird, you're going to end up going to a teaching hospital because they're the ones pushing the boundaries. They're trying different things, but they're also the ones sharing it with everybody else in the world so they can implement that. So we've chosen to be that, which means we're going to make mistakes more often and faster than our peers. But we're going to share our mistakes so they don't do it. But we're also going to share our success. And by doing that, we elevate our own region. But then we also are constantly challenging and changing our best. So, we don't have to worry about that kind of irrelevancy that comes with the speed of change.
That's very interesting. So I guess one of my questions for you is, what are the key building blocks to catapulting a community into sustainable growth?
So I think that goes back to the community capitalism model of you have to have first companies that are willing to invest and grow to create jobs and wealth. That's the only place it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Assuming you're not, striking oil, but even then, when you strike oil, you can employ a few people short term, but then the product leaves, so it doesn't create any real wealth if you don't have businesses to capitalize on that. You have to have government models that allow businesses to thrive, that protect the environment, and do so with stability. So the market understands where things are going and can invest around that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're always going to have those that are left behind, those that have pasts have been bruised. So you've got to have the philanthropic, the social sector, to pick up those folks to make sure they're getting elevated, whether that's different ways of doing education, whether it's making sure that people are being fed who can't take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But that same philanthropic groups also have to take responsibility for enhancing the community. And in different places that manifests itself differently. Some places it's, symphony orchestras, others it's walking and hike and bike trails, but you've got to also create an environment where people want to be there. And so if you can do those things together, those are the places that thrive. Where one of those things is off, you may be able to succeed, but you will never thrive. And if you have two of them are off, you don't have a prayer. You just can't. You can't make it. You won't succeed.
That's very interesting. I knew you had a formula for me, so it's very interesting.
Yeah, well, we could do. When you're speaking to an accountant, you've always got to have the data.
Yeah, I knew there was building blocks and
Yeah.
things. It's because it's easier for me to visualize when there's like pillars, right?
That's right.
And it's very interesting to me that the social is super important. That we're everybody is socially being taken care of, and then also you have to create a space that people want to actually live in. I mean, you can only bring so many people in based on jobs, but they're not going to stay there if it's not a good place to live.
Absolutely. My daughter fully intended when she graduated from college to go to Austin. So she works in advertising and went to school at SMU in Dallas. And so Austin was the place to go till she spent a summer working there. And the levels of disengagement between the social sectors and the business sector was overwhelming and depressing for her, where, she would get up, every day and was in the heart of Austin in a very expensive apartment complex, walk out on the street and have to step over dozens of homeless men who frankly were mostly young men who had come to Austin with a dream and ended up with an addiction. And the community wasn't doing anything about it. And
yeah, we have a problem in Denver now.
Yeah, and she's like, that's not where I want to be. I don't want to be someplace where there's two worlds and one ignores the other, because eventually you won't be able to ignore it. And so you've got to make sure you have those both safety nets as well as creating environments that are incredible.
I love it. That makes so much sense. So tell us about Catalyst University and who you guys are helping with that.
So I got really lucky a few years ago. I had a dinner with Jim Collins, good to great Jim Collins. So I sitting next to him, and I said, you've written a book about what it takes for companies to be great. You've studied that. You wrote a small monogram about what it takes for not-for-profits to be great. But what does it take for communities to be great? And I thought for a minute, and he said, it's actually easy. He said, if you focus on business, you can be profitable, but you'll never be great. To be great, you have to focus, everyone has to thrive. And reach the same levels of success, and that's for-profit, not-for-profit, faith-based, local government, and education.
Mhm.
They all have to be at the same level of great, of amazing. Otherwise, the community will never be successful. And as we talked, the analogy came to me that there's this old saying that high tide lifts all boats, or rising tide lifts all boats. But if you know anything about that, if it only works if the ropes that are holding the boat to the dock allow the boat to rise.
Mhm.
So if you, in our case, had 5 ropes tied to that boat, and 4 of them were allowed to rise, but one was too tight, one didn't have capacity, then the corner of the boat would get pulled down under the water, and it would eventually sink the entire boat.
That's such a great analogy.
And so if you think of it that way, it's all in all of our enlightened self-interest to make sure that, if you're in business, to make sure that your church is thriving and has capacity to be great. If you're in local education, you want to make sure that if you're successful, the business is successful. Otherwise, the best families will have to leave and your success will go down because you'll lose their investment in their kids. And so it just focusing on that. So I've been to a lot of conferences. I've spoken at a lot of conferences, but I never was at one that focused on those 5 sectors. So we built Catalyst University around this idea that where business is critical to our success because they have the money to be sponsors and buy lots of tickets. We have to get the others in the room. So we're lifting all leaders. They're hearing the same messages. They're being inspired by the same people. Mm-hmm. They're at lunch sitting next to each other, realizing that we're all the same. We're just addressing different problems. And so it grew from 9 years ago, we were at 180 people, and hoping that we didn't lose money, to now we're at 3,000 people and still hoping we don't lose money. But it's become this kind of masterclass on community development. And this year, for the first time, we actually moved from a winter conference to a summer conference. Mm-hmm. Because we have to get more teachers and more students involved. And so this year we've set up a separate half day in addition to for high school students.
Oh, that's cool.
And to mix them, we have 8 different school districts represented, which for us was really important because we've got to show kids that Friday night football is important, but it's irrelevant 2 years after you graduate from school. It's about relationships and sticking in the community and seeing people for who they are. So we've brought in incredible speakers for them. We've got the university president speaking to them, going to get his picture taken with everybody who wants a picture. We have a financial advisor coming in to talk about how you really fund your education and don't buy into this myth that you've got to have, a brand new car and run up tons of debt. The average kid doesn't do that. These things you see on the news, $100,000 undergraduate debt, you shouldn't have gone to that school, or you should have done things cheaper. But we've got to change this because when we look at great communities, 10 years from now will be measured by the number of people they have in that community under the age of 40. And so we've got to set up ourselves to be that place that people come and they thrive and they stay, and then their friends want to come here. And so that the best way to do that is make sure that high school kids go to college or some kind of education, they graduate and they start their lives in a way they can be successful.
And where they are.
Absolutely.
stay where they are, not
Yep.
just the small town and then the
Yeah.
small town dies.
Or have a choice. In a lot of cases, they just don't have a choice now. And we want to make sure they have a choice of where they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the cost of living in Denver, and I'm like, the kids are never going to be able to move out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Like, they're never moving out. Like, I'm looking at my husband, like, where are they going to live?
Yeah.
Like, how?
No.
Because cost of living has gone up so high here.
They're
never going to, how are they going to spend $1,700 on a 1-bedroom apartment? Like,
yeah,
we couldn't do that. That's our mortgage.
Exactly. And I encourage you, if you move to Kalamazoo, Michigan, and your kids go to Kalamazoo public schools, we pay for their 4 years of college.
There you go.
We have the Kalamazoo Promise that guarantees every kid who graduates in Kalamazoo public schools 4 years of college.
Wow, that's cool.
100% privately funded. So,
wow.
And the apartments are much cheaper.
Yeah, right? I know. I was looking at the cost of living in Kalamazoo, but then I'm like, but it's really cold up there.
Yeah. Well, you live in Denver. It's not much cold.
We're actually just offhand, we're actually looking at potentially like moving to Tennessee, or, we're looking at Chattanooga. We're looking at places that are growing and they have a huge population of under 40 over there. Yep. In Chattanooga right now.
Chattanooga and Nashville are on fire.
Yeah, and the cost of living is so much less than it is here. And my husband's a mechanical engineer, and they have a ton of mechanical engineer jobs that pay more than Denver.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm like, what is happening?
I think the whole world is reshuffling around this idea that places where you can build your life are going to be the most important thing. It's no longer about being where your family is or where you went to school. You see yourself thriving.
Yeah.
And that goes back to then communities have to make sure everybody is thriving.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you can get a great job if the community stinks. If you can't find, if you're into hike and bike trails and they don't have them, you're not going to move there. It doesn't matter what it pays.
We absolutely need bike trails.
Yeah.
Otherwise he won't come with me. My husband will be like, nope, sorry.
See? And that's one of those things that, and the funny thing is I've been in economic development community world a long time.
You have.
Nobody has ever asked me about a symphony. And nearly every company we deal with asks about hike and bike trails. It's just, I don't know where that disconnection came from, but when we coach community leaders, elected officials, it's focus on outdoor recreation, focus on getting people interactive. They're not interested in going to the mall. That isn't going to be their social life. Their social life is going to be hike and bike trails connected to ice cream shops and microbreweries.
Yeah, I'm in. Totally in.
You can do that, you win.
That's awesome. So your newest book, Uniquely You, drops in just a couple weeks. We're so excited for you. At this recording, Ron has his big party tonight too. So
I do. Yeah, our big launch party's tonight. So the book launches on May 20th.
21st.
21st
is what Amazon was telling me.
Yeah, so. May 21st. So we're
I have to get my copy.
It's very it's very exciting.
We're excited for you. So what can you tell us about the book?
So the book was Uniquely You is I could show you a picture, but nobody else can see.
I love it. It's got an orange on it.
Yeah. So Uniquely You, subtitle: Transform Your Organization by Becoming the Leader Only You Can Be. We live in a world where Instagram and people's fake lives, their highlight reels, have become the measure by which a lot of us measure ourselves. And so what we're ending up with is people are so unhappy because guess what? They're not a very good Kim Kardashian. They're not a very good, depending on your age, John Maxwell or anybody else out there that you're trying to copy, or you're looking at their life thinking that's what success looks like. Most people that we work with, and over the course of the year, there'll be between 6,000 and 8,000 people who will go through one of our coaching or conferences. And the vast majority of them, we ask what we call the Olivia Pope question. So if you watch the TV show Scandal, Olivia Pope is the main character. And in the early shows, she always asks the same question. What do you want? What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And nobody could ever tell her the answer. And most leaders find themselves in that place, particularly young leaders. They don't know what they want. So they see what's on Instagram, and they see, what the world is out there. They see highlight reels of people's success, and they think, well, that must be easy. That's what I want. Well, when you get it, you realize, oh, I don't want this at all. I'm unhappy. So being a bad fake of somebody else is the worst way to live your life. I believe we're all empowered with greatness in us. We all have the ability to succeed, but most of us don't do it because we're scared, because we're afraid if we admit that we're not perfect, that people won't like us, so they won't buy our product, or they won't do business with us, when in fact it is those unique things that make us desirable and that people want to be around us. So, the book is about stories that relate to kind of those things in my own life about, I spent the first 40 years of my life terrified that people would find out that, I had a learning disability, that I'm dyslexic. Now, I was terrified because my father was dyslexic, and he never learned to read and write, and it cost him his life. When I was 4, he was killed in an industrial accident. And I was terrified, and he quit school because they put him in a special education class, and with kids that were severely developmentally disabled. And he was done. He walked out of school, and I was terrified that I would be somehow marginalized. I was terrified that people would find out, that I always had free lunch growing up in school. And it wasn't until I was 40 that the fear was becoming so debilitating that I either had a choice to just buy into it and sit on the sidelines, or not acknowledge where I came from. And I was thriving successfully. Mm-hmm. And I decided I was just going to be transparent. I was tired of hiding. And once I became authentically, uniquely me, that's when success compounded at levels that I was unimaginable. So, I want that for everyone. And so it really is about telling the stories that we hope helps particularly millennials, because I get lots of emails and texts. But I get more texts than anything from millennials. But
Facebook messages.
Yeah, exactly. Asking, it's really in two categories. It's the young woman who got great grades. She thought she got the job of her dreams right out of college. She gets there and she's treated like a second-class citizen. And she doesn't know what to do about it, and doesn't have a mentor, doesn't know how to be a strong woman without, in a world dominated by, in a lot of cases still, kind of fraternity boy mentality. Mm-hmm. Or it's the 30-year-old guy who just had his first or second child who is saying, I don't want to be my dad. I don't want to work 70 hours a week and never see my kids. I want to go home at 5. I want to coach their sports. But I don't know. I don't see that in my world. How do I do those things? Mm-hmm. So this book is really written for them, and then written for the 50-year-old who wants to support those two, but has no idea what the rules are today and how to change themselves so they can accelerate the next generation.
I love it. So in your book, you discuss how to find your unique leadership vibe. What are some practical steps to finding that vibe?
I think part of it is knowing what you want. And so knowing what gonna make you happy. Mm-hmm. I spoke to a pretty large gathering of psychologists, psychiatrists, mental health professionals. And so afterwards, I asked to meet with a group of them and said, I hear about that we got more antidepressants being prescribed today than ever before. Why? Why are people so anxious? Why are they so depressed? And they said, it's nobody knows what they want, so they're not happy. Everybody wants to be happy, but nobody knows what happiness looks like. So I think that's the first thing is you got to know, and it doesn't have to be forever, but what's happiness look like in the next 3 years? What is the things that are going to bring you joy, real joy that can't be taken away from you? So you got to understand that. You've also got to put yourself in an environment that allows you to be uniquely you. And it is. It's easier today than it has ever been in our nation's history to quit a job and get another job. We have all-time low unemployment in every sector. And all across the country, places are thriving. So there's very few places that aren't thriving. So there's never been a better time to define, here's the environment I want to live in. Here's the ideal job. Here's what, where the hike and bike trails that are important to me. Here's the schools that are important to me. Here's the vibe I want in my life. And curating that for yourself. You're either going to be a victim or a victor of change. And only you get to decide that.
I love that.
Only you have that power. So deciding that is critical for lifting yourself up on this journey. And it isn't permanent. You can do something today and do it for 3 years and go, okay, now my next thing is, you change your computer every 3 years. You change, our TVs are getting changed. Most people their phones. People are changing their houses, every 3 or 5 years. Nobody plans to own their house until the mortgage gets paid off. But we're not doing that with our own life and curating what's important to us. And then I think the other kind of thing is making sure you're spending your life with people that make you better. And that's hard, but it may be the single most important thing you can do. And that means in your work life, your family, your, extended family, your social surroundings. My grandfather, who was the male influence of my life, as I would walk out the door, every time he would say, "Remember, stupid sticks." And it was like, don't put yourself around in these situations where where you're going to get sideways, where bad things can happen. And as leaders building our own life, we have to remember good and bad sticks. You want great things, you got to put yourself in an environment and around people who are going to make you great. And if you want bad things to happen, go hang out with Eeyore, because bad things always happen to Eeyore. Tigger never has a bad day.
No.
So go surround yourself with Tiggers.
Stupid sticks. I need to start saying this.
Every time your kids go out the door, stupid sticks.
I like that a little better than be kind. Be kind today. Your job is to be kind. Yep, I'm going to start saying stupid sticks. I have an 11-year-old, so well, he turns.
There's a lot of stickiness coming.
Middle school.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stupid in middle school.
Yeah.
All right, Ron. Well, where is the easiest way for people to find you?
RonKitchens.com is the easy way, or for the new book, it's uniquelyyoubook.com.
Yes.
But RonKitchens.com, you'll always be able to get me. If you buy a copy of the book, my cell number's in the very back, and you can call me.
You're great.
I'm glad to talk. It's one of those things that I have a cousin, my wife's cousin actually, who's a Broadway actor. And he was trying out for a play, and he came dressed as a character, which is an Irish cop. And the play was Our Town. And so he got that role. Well, then the casting director said, Mel Brooks is doing a new movie, and he needs an Irish cop. In the movie, you should go try out for it. Take your costume with you. So Tim, our cousin, goes for the interview and gets in there, and he comes in the role of this Irish cop, and a New York City Irish cop, and he's going through the whole thing, and he's pretending to arrest Mel Brooks, and Mel Brooks says, "Okay, stop. You have the role. You know why you got the role? Because if you're gonna ring the bell, you ring the bell." And and that's what we tell people. If you're gonna go all in, go all in. So I want to spend the next 20 years of my life lifting up and supporting leaders, and that means I got to give them my phone number. So call and text me.
Okay, so final question for you. What is your one biggest piece of advice that you would give an emerging or new leader?
Oh, that's a great question. Lead with vulnerability. Okay. It's scary. It's scary to not admit you're perfect. And middle school, as you just said, conditions us to avoid mean people, and everybody seems to have hormones and be a mean kid in middle school. But that shouldn't condition our lives. That should be who we are. If you think of the most successful people really successful, not crazy internet fake successful, people whose lives you go, yeah, I would like to have them come over to my house for dinner. Mm-hmm. Those are people who lead with vulnerability, who lead with their passion, who you really know who they are and aren't trying to be some fake version that they saw in, a Tom Cruise movie. And so, if you could just do that, you're going to find that people will surround you and will help you to achieve dreams you didn't know you had. But if you're a fake knockoff version of yourself, nobody spends much time or effort polishing a fake Gucci bag.
I love that. Or, polishing a turd.
That's it. I was trying to clean it up.
That's fine. You can say whatever you want on this podcast. I want people to be them. So again.
Oh, there you go. All right.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ron. We are really excited for the book launch for you and excited to have had you on the podcast. We appreciate you.
Awesome. We're excited to be here, and thanks for doing this. We really appreciate you.
Hey y'all, thanks for listening. If you found this podcast to be inspiring, helpful, and entertaining, please like and subscribe. This helps us grow the community and reach more people. If you are interested in learning more about this episode's guest or accessing any of the books or other resources mentioned in this episode, be sure to check out the description box below. Until next time, be abundant.